I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. You know, I grew up in the Seattle area, and when I was there, our family would sometimes leave the east side to travel to see relatives across Lake Washington. And when we did, we had to stop and throw some money in the toll booth to use the 520 bridge. And then I moved all around the country, and then 30 years ago when I moved to Portland, I was so thrilled to find there were no tolls on any of the major highways or freeways here. How nice is that? Well, turns out those days are numbered. The tolls are coming, and that's our big story. Tolling, for those of you who may not know, means you have to pay a certain amount to use a bridge or a roadway. They're common on the East Coast or in other places like Austin, Texas, where I've also paid tolls, and now in the Seattle area as well. Oregon's Department of Transportation made this video to show us how it would work. A transponder inside your car would tell the tolling sensors above when you drive through, and you would not stop at a pay booth anymore. If you don't have a transponder, that's no problem. The system's going to read your license plate, and then they'll send you a bill. There are two tolling projects, one near Oregon City on I-205, and then a separate one that also includes I-205 north of Oregon City and Interstate 5. So, got that? Two projects. The purpose of the tolls are for, in the Oregon City area, to add a lane to the Abernethy Bridge to make it wider, and also on the 7-mile section of 205 that narrows down to 2 lanes each way. The tolls will also pay to upgrade 9 bridges in that area so that they can survive the Cascadia earthquake. Now, the second purpose there and throughout the system is something called congestion pricing. That makes it more expensive to travel during the busiest times. So if you're thinking about delaying your trip, you pay less, and it also eases congestion. Now, as word is spreading, some are shocked at the amount of the bills being discussed for those tolls. Here's a clip from the Yamhill County Commission meeting in late August as the ODOT toll policy manager briefed the board.
I am able to share for that 205 section, we are studying 50 to 60 cent tolls for those off-peak hours and overnight. And then for the peak hours, it would be $2 per bridge, so $4 total, right around there, $4 to $5. But that is, I agree with you, that's concerning, not able to have that information to more robustly share.
So $2 per trip. So if you're a commuter, it'd be $4 a day.
So it's actually, it would be tolled on 2 bridges, the Abernethy and Tualatin Bridge for just that 205 section. So it would be $4 if you went all the way through it. So $8 a day. If you're traveling at those peak hours, 7 to 9 a.m., 4 to 6 p.m.
So that's almost $250 a month if you're a commuter per driver.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you break it down, it's actually closer to $160 a month. But hey, no argument here. That is a good chunk of change if you're going to travel at the busiest times, which, by the way, many do. That's why it's busy. I talked with the board chair, Lindsay Burschauer, today. She said there is a growing movement to push back against ODOT and those tolling plans.
We're pretty clear that this is an effort to reduce congestion, but get you out of your car is essentially what they were saying. This is an effort to get folks off the road. For most people, that's just not possible. We have to be able to get to work and school. And like I said, I'm worried about the impact to folks who are not wealthy, who can't pay an extra $200, $250 a month in tolling just to get to work and back.
Now, ODOT said they are still studying all the charges and will create a discount for families making about 200% of the federal poverty level. So for a family of 4, that's about $55,000. And while I focused on the tolling for the Abernethy and Tualatin bridges, yes, there will be tolls collected at each place. There will be other tolls collected at other locations yet to be determined on both 205 and I-5. I asked ODOT's project manager for tolls if that wasn't a bit much.
Part of what we're hearing is from some viewers saying, wait a minute, if I'm driving into Portland every day and I'm crossing both those bridges, it could be $8.50 or more per day per driver in my household just to go to work. Is that right?
Well, again, it depends on the time of day of travel. There's only 1 hour of the day that we're modeling where there be that higher rate. Other times there's a much lower rate. And again, if folks can travel at a different time of day or a different route, or also, a different mode, like by transit, there could be options there.
So there you go. The first tolls will appear on that section of 205 near Oregon City. ODOT says it will start about 2 years from now, and we'll learn the exact prices about 6 months before that. So look for that information to come out in late spring or early summer of 2024. And at the risk of beating the tolling drum too many times, we're not even talking about the tolls that will almost certainly be added to the new interstate bridge that's being planned to build across the Columbia. It's unclear what those prices will be, but it is a very good bet it will not be free. We're going to be doing a lot of these stories, and I'd like to know what you think about all this. Send me an email, will you? The address is thestory@kgw.com, or you could call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. I listen to all those, and I read all the emails. I look forward to hearing from you. Moving on. Last night we introduced you to the drug czar, if you will, of Portugal. I wanted to talk with him to see how his program of decriminalizing drugs is different than Oregon's Measure 110, which many think is way out of control. He explained how he helped set up the country's decriminalization of small amounts of drugs and explained all the things they do to bring social pressure onto addicts and to stop them from using. It's had a huge success over the last 22 years.
When our strategy that included decriminalization was approved, we estimate that we could have 100,000 people using only heroin. That means 1% of our population. Nowadays, we estimate that we can have around 33,000 people using any kind of drug in a problematic way.
By the way, if you missed last night's show or any of these shows, you can go to KGW YouTube page, click on live. I know it doesn't make sense because it's not live when you're looking at it, but it works, so just do it. Click on live and you'll find our shows in chronological order. The story from Portugal from Tuesday night is about 7 minutes in. And you should watch Kyle's story too. That's the first one. It's all good. Now, back to this show. Did you hear that drop in users that he mentioned? That's more than 60%. That is amazing. Now, Portugal's system is very different than Oregon's. It involves social pressure to get users to stop using drugs. And just as important, it also has lots of treatment centers, so those who are addicted don't have to wait to get in. Now, that treatment part is an obvious problem in Oregon. It's one of many of you know very well. After last night's show, in fact, we got a call from Kenya sharing her frustration over that very thing.
I just want to know if maybe we start a petition. If we could, what are our options to change that in Oregon? I am personally affected by it, by family members. And the problem is in Oregon that there is a waiting list for people that need help. And in between that time of getting the help, those people don't make it to the door.
And that is sad. Hundreds of millions of dollars from the cannabis tax now have been spread out statewide in Oregon, and hopefully more treatment beds will be available in every part of the state soon. And Kenya, I'm sorry your family's struggling with that. And yes, you could start a petition to try and force another vote, maybe repeal Measure 110. But another way would be to contact your state lawmakers, because they are watching and they are listening, and they will be in session this coming January. Now, this morning, State Senator Jeff Golden, who represents the Medford-Ashland area, sent me an email saying that he saw last night's show and is now very interested in how Oregon can adopt Portugal's best practices.
I voted for Measure 110. I've always thought that we were on the wrong track criminalizing recreational drug use. That's distinct from drug dealing and drug trafficking, and that we were filling and overfilling our jail cells and prisons with people who shouldn't be there and needed help, needed medical help. And that got me to vote for 110. It is not unrolling like I imagined or wanted it to.
I've heard that a lot. Senator Golden is a Democrat, by the way. He does not think that Measure 110 needs to be repealed, at least not yet. Not if Portugal holds secrets to how Oregon can fix it.
What I was especially interested in your piece, your approach in going straight to experienced people in Portugal and talking about how they've been more successful than we have. Of course, they've been at it longer. I want to very carefully look at them as a model. They're not an identical culture, but they're similar in a lot of ways. And what I heard from the health official that you interviewed was that there are ways to incentivize people that aren't terribly punitive and expensive, the way that incarceration has been for us, and that have a higher probability of ending up leaving people productive and self-sufficient and on the right tracks. And I want to steal every nuance of every good idea they have.
And circling back again to Kenya, Senator Golden says each of us can help by taking action, by letting lawmakers know this is a huge deal for all of us. And we can do that by contacting our state lawmakers and sharing our stories.
What's very effective in a lot of our issue areas is the stories of our constituents. So I think what people could do, especially people who've had some involvement with this world, either have been addicted themselves, have loved ones who've been addicted, if they can be talking to legislators wherever they live about their experiences, about how deeply it's impacted their lives, and ideally about what's worked.
He said it's also good to share stories of what did not work. You may think your voice is not important, but listen, stop that. It is important. If you don't like the way Measure 110 and decriminalization is going now in Oregon, take action. Don't just complain, call or write a lawmaker. You can find all the ways to contact them with a simple Google search. Still to come on the story, addiction services in Portland just can't keep up.
I was doing multiple pills a day, definitely, until I ran out of money.
And I was shooting up dope on the streets.
But those working at a new recovery center in Northeast hope to help as many people as possible.
I want to make a place where we're maximizing people's potential.
How the founder saw great need and is doing what he can to fix it when the story returns. Now to our homeless crisis. Addiction and homelessness often go hand in hand. Given the number of people struggling with addiction on our streets, there's definitely a lack of facilities for them to detox and recovery and treatment. But one team of outreach workers in Portland is trying to change that, to bridge the gap by opening a recovery center in Northeast Portland. Blair Best has our story.
At first glance, this building off Northeast Sandy Boulevard blends right in. But for those inside,
I don't know, I've just been having a good time.
It's a place of hope.
Where it's 25 days today.
That's how long 19-year-old Andrew Couch has been sober.
And it was the fentanyl pills, the blues. It's around everywhere, so. I was doing multiple pills a day, definitely, until I ran out of money.
Over the years, he's been to his fair share of treatment centers, but this time is different. He admitted himself to Cielo Treatment Center, which opened earlier this month.
I haven't been having many cravings. I feel like I'm on what they call the pink cloud, but right now I'm just doing really good and I'm enjoying getting the help that I need. So
The biggest piece about it is finding a purpose in life.
Martin Camacho is one of the center's founders. He's been an outreach worker for years, meeting people where they are, including homeless camps, and getting them into treatment.
Sometimes trying to find them a bed could take some time.
Before many of those struggling with addiction can come to this recovery center, they go to a detox facility. But there's a lack of those facilities in Portland. Currently, Oregon ranks one of the worst states in the country when it comes to access to addiction treatment services.
It breaks your heart. Yeah, it breaks your heart. The window of willingness is so small, and somebody wants to help and it's not there for them. They might not get another opportunity to do that.
Those missed opportunities, what Camacho is trying to change with this new recovery center. They help about 40 people reach sobriety and help them plan for the future. They also offer housing. Most of their clients are 18 to 25 years old.
I want to make a place where we're maximizing people's potentials, we're helping them grow. That way they can continue living a life of recovery.
That example seen in many of their staff, like peer mentor Samantha Salas.
I was living on the streets and I was shooting up dope on the streets, so it's kind of definitely like a 360 turn.
She's been sober for 11 months and now helps others do the same.
And I kind of just show people like through my actions.
I wanted to give back. I wanted to help people, and I wanted to show them that there is a way that you can change your life for the better.
I feel happy, content, and hopeful.
In Northeast Portland, Blair Best, KGW News.
Now, if you've been watching us for a while, you know that we like to ask Blair to give us a peek into how her stories come about. And as a reporter, sometimes your previous reporting can come back and pay dividends when you least expect it. Take a look.
Hey Pat, joining you from Northeast Sandy Boulevard outside the Recovery Treatment Center. Just wanted to share with you my process in telling this story. So a few months ago, I did a story focusing on the lack of detox centers in Portland, specifically those that allow walk-in services. So if someone wakes up off the streets one day and decides, I want to get sober and clean, there's only 2 places in Portland that they can go to line up outside the door where they could get a bed. But there's a lack of those facilities. There's a lack of beds. There's often a long wait list. People are getting turned away at the door. So after that story aired, funny enough, my CrossFit coach actually watched the story and he said, Blair, I work in the recovery industry and I've run into that problem many times. He says he often goes into camps, tries to get people off the streets, into detox, and he's constantly running into that barrier. And he said he was working to open his own recovery center for where people can go after they've gone through detox. Because there's also a lack of those facilities. There's a lack of housing. There's often long wait lists for housing programs. For when you go through a detox program, where do you go next? I was told by the people at Hooper Detox that oftentimes people are discharged back onto the streets. So yeah, I was talking with my coach Martin, and he was trying to put an end to that cycle, and that's why he opened this facility. And a lot of their clients are younger, under the age of 25, and they're just doing really great work here to try to end that cycle and keep people off the streets and keep people sober.
Thanks, Blair. Nice to see good things happening. Still to come on the story, a grave robbery in Portland and a tale that has lasted the test of time. It's the latest installment of KGW's Wicked West series, how a major blunder by a suspect led officers right to him. When the story returns. Ah, yes. A new episode of KGW's podcast, Wicked West, is out today. The series dives into the mysterious Northwest folklore of infamous stories. Episode 4 takes us back to Portland in the late 1800s and the story of grave robbing of one of the area's most prominent citizens.
He was one of Portland's most prominent leaders, William Sergeant Ladd. He served 2 terms as mayor and helped develop the city in the late 1800s.
And over time, he would become involved in everything in Portland and in Oregon. Manufacturing, transportation, railroads. He invested in everything.
Ladd also founded Portland's first bank. His entrepreneurial ventures garnered him a nice fortune. His net worth was estimated at between $150 and $250 million by today's standards. And while Ladd was admired for his philanthropy, he was also known as a shrewd businessman.
If you did not pay your mortgage, then the bank would foreclose.
His reputation and his wealth made him a target even after his death in 1893. A man named Daniel Magone had a deep desire to capitalize on the Ladd family fortune. Magone, who had lost his property in the economic depression in the 1890s, had an axe to grind with the rich and powerful who controlled the city. He had also experienced the trauma of watching his young daughter drown.
Some people again wondered whether he was losing his sanity because he started to talk about plots to do things to get his money back, to find some way to get revenge on those who had taken his property away from him.
Magone developed a plan to steal Ladd's body from his grave at the Riverview Cemetery and hold it for ransom.
Came up with this plan to take Mr. Ladd's corpse and to hold it for ransom for $50,000. To ask the Ladd family, to pay $50,000 to get his body back.
But he couldn't do it alone, so Magone enlisted the help of 3 men. One was a ne'er-do-well named Charles Montgomery, who also wanted to get revenge on the wealthy elite. Magone told the other two helpers that they were stealing the body to donate to medical research, which of course was a lie. The cemetery had no guards, which made for an easy entrance and escape. But the men were paranoid they would be caught, so they stole a field telephone and tapped into the town's phone lines to monitor any calls about suspicious activity at the cemetery.
They were convinced that the Ladd family had some sort of alarm at the gravesite that would go off.
After digging late into the night, the body snatchers finally reached Ladd's coffin.
They take what was described as a very well-embalmed, well-preserved Mr. Ladd from his coffin, and they take him with him, carry him through the grass, through the trees, through the leaves, down to the river.
There, they dug a hole and buried Ladd in a makeshift grave. The thieves escaped in a boat, and Magone crafted his ransom plans. Except there was one hitch. Magone and his men had made a huge mistake. The knife they had used to pry open the coffin had been accidentally left behind at the cemetery.
The police arrive at the scene, find the knife. They go to the local blacksmith. "Oh, I made that knife," he said. "I made it for Daniel Mangone." He remembers who he made it for. So right away, the jig is up.
Montgomery ratted out Magone instantly and led police to the shallow grave by the river. Magone was arrested and went on trial without ever achieving his goal of ransoming Ladd's body. Magone attempted to plead insanity, but the jury didn't buy it. He spent 2 years in prison for the grave robbery. And as for the Ladd family, they made sure no thief could ever steal their beloved again.
Once they got the body back, they put it back in the casket, they put it in the ground, and they poured concrete around. His grave site now is it'll be very tough to get into the casket.
Wow, how about that? By the way, this is the 4th of 6 series about the dark history of the Pacific Northwest. For the full stories, look for the Wicked West podcast wherever you get your podcasts. You can also see photos and learn much more about the series at kgw.com/wickedwest. Keep sending your questions and comments to thestory@kgw.com. We're going to wrap things up right after this. The KGW Great Toy Drive is underway. Want to help out? You can. Head to kgw.com/toy and click the Donate Money button. After you give, we'll do the shopping for you. How easy is that? And this week, during the Week of Giving, internet provider Ziply Fiber is helping out by donating $5 for each new installation. If you want to pick out the toys yourself, you can do that too. You can drop them off new unwrapped toys at any IQ Credit Union, Fred Meyer, or local Toyota dealership. Well, that's the end of our show. Thanks for watching. And remember, the story, our story, that never ends.